Hello world, welcome to another episode of Working Musicians. I am John Thiessen, president of El Camino School of Music Repair and Technology, and today we have with us a special guest, David Traver, musician, composer, and music director. David, thank you for being here.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
So David, for those that are unfamiliar with your very esteemed long career, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you find us here today?
Yeah, sure. Well, primarily I'm a bass player. That's been kind of the through line for me throughout my entire career. And I went to school in Boston for electronic composition, straight, right out of high school. And I went to Northeastern University. And while I was there, I played in bands just like everybody else does, and did some van touring and, did some playing around New York City and Boston and, New England and stuff like that. And while I was doing that, I became a little bit bummed out with the whole scene of being kind of like a, musician at the time. I don't know what it was. I think a lot of it was, this was like the late 90s and 2000s-ish, and I wasn't really digging any of the music that was around. And I didn't like the way that the music industry was going. So, I was, because Napster and all that stuff was happening. Sure. And so basically I was kind of just confused on what to do. And somebody had mentioned about, because I was a total prog rock geek as well, and I played this thing called a Chapman stick, okay. Which you will never ever hear on a popular record, or get paid to do. Unless you're in a subway like I did.
Busking.
Busking, yeah. I would get paid in coins or, different stuff that people wanted to leave in my case. So that's when somebody told me that this show called BlueManGroup had a Chapman stick player in the band, and I was very intrigued, and I went and checked it out. Saw the show, loved it, and pretty much walked up and demanded a job from the stick player, because he was hanging out outside. And he was like, of course, that's not how it works. And I just worked. He's like, call this number, come check it out, be an intern or whatever. I was an intern for a while, painted the set, brought coffee and food to people. And then finally I, got some, jobs that actually paid. So I was able to keep going to school and still try to get into this production. And then after, a while, I got into the production as a band member, and then got into the production as another band member. I was playing a couple of the instruments on different nights. And then that just basically started my, at that point, I'd been working there for like 4 or 5 years, and now it's, started my 15-year basically career as a musician, and later on a music director, and later on after that an associate music director for the company, BlueManGroup. So that's what has brought me here today, where my career has ended up so far.
When you were doing that, about how many gigs, like last year, let's say 2019, how many gigs did you do affiliation with BlueManGroup?
Well, usually with BlueMan, I would play, when I was on tour, because I did the tour for a while, that was the heaviest one. It was a US national tour, and I think I did over 300 shows in 1 year, which was crazy on the body, and I wouldn't suggest doing that at all. But it was really fun. But in the sit-down shows, and I've been in the, I've played all the shows in different, either been there as like a visitor and covering somebody, or being there as like a somebody who lives in that town doing it. In those shows, I would play maybe 5 nights a week, sometimes multiple shows a day, but usually it was 6 to 9 shows a week for 15 years, maybe more. No. So whatever that, Dakota, what is that?
Well, you're still 21, so you started off when you were pretty young when you started off, right?
Yeah, I was like 19, 20, 21 when I started with the company as like, a crew member.
Sure.
But when I became a musician, I was 23, 24, and then when I became a music director, I was 27 when I moved down here to Orlando to open the show at Universal Studios.
So how did music, because obviously you went to school for it, obviously composing was always kind of where your focus was at.
Right.
So how did you get there? Like when did you first start playing music, and what did you realize that maybe the band thing, I know we were talking about the 90s and maybe it not being the right time for you, but to kind of give up the dream of rock stardom, band, traditional, the way that many people find their way into music, to the Blue Man thing. What inspired you more about the composing thing, and how did it all start?
Well, a lot of I still had and do have dreams of being the touring rock star. That never goes away, I think, with certain people. But back then, in the late 90s and 2000s, I didn't like any of the music, number one, and I didn't want to go to college. I think if I really wanted to be a rock and roll touring guy, which I think I could have done, I should have just moved to LA, like everybody does, or moved to Nashville, which I think, I don't know if that would have been good at that time, but LA, would have been a deal, just gone for it. But I was I was really into jazz. I was, more into jazz, I think, than I was into, just straight out rock music, at the time. And I was a huge fan of Pat Metheny and different, like Weather Report and all these, I was also really big into Tool and also really big into Philip Glass and Steve Reich.
So complex music.
Yeah, so I was into things that were, and King Crimson, I was a huge King Crimson fan. So I was into things that were really complex and really, not so, a little bit more long form, and I was always really into the music of films that I would watch and stuff like that. So I think that I was just like, well, this is an avenue that I could go to, towards. And that was right when analog and digital were having a fight, to see what the studios were going to be doing. So I decided, all right, well, it looks like everything's going digital. I'm going to school for electronic music because I was, kind of, that intrigued me that you could do, composition in your house.
And you were pretty much on the cutting edge of that. I mean, that was a new technology at the time. So you were kind of at the ground floor of that.
Yeah, it was. So that's how I kind of came by being a composer, and I did some student films and worked with some people, over, between 2000 and 2007 or whatever. But at that point, honestly, I was really into this idea of performance art. And that's why working with Blue Man hit me at, such a great time in my life because I wasn't into any of the music that was going on. I wasn't really into the idea of working necessarily in a recording studio because I also was really kind of confused about where that was heading as well, So then when I saw this freaky deaky punk rock theatrical performance that was doing all of this stuff, the compositions were great, the performances were great. We got to wear costumes, because I was really big into Mr. Bungle, and I loved mask bands, like War and stuff like that, who later on I ended up hanging out with because of Blue Man. So it all comes full circle. So that was cool. And it also had people came to the shows. So I was
Which, as a gigging musician, it
was amazing. I was in a great band. My friend Laura and the Laura Glida band is what it was called at the time, and we were like a Sarah McLachlan mixed with Dave Matthews kind of thing, and it was really great. And we had some really good songs. But no matter what, you would only get the same 7 people to come to your show. We all know this thing, right? So the other thing that I liked was that I would go and I would put freaky deaky makeup on, and I would sit in this thing, and the lights would come on in the theater, and there'd be 700 people there. Or when I was doing the Vegas show, there'd be 1,200 people, or 2,000. Oh, it was 1,800 when I was at the Venetian. It was
and excited about what you're doing too.
So all that stuff mixed together, I was just theatrical weirdness is where I belong. You know. And so now that I've been doing that for a while. I've been getting a little bit more into, performing out. I do I do anything. I play in original bands. I play in cover bands, which are super duper fun, and you get money, because who doesn't need more money all the time? We are musicians, we're not necessarily millionaires. You still need to, put food on the table and pay for your car. So I do cover bands, and that's super duper fun. And really, I do convention work, which is super fun. But now also I'm getting back into the idea of composition being a place that I can return to, because it's a little bit safer well, right now it's really safe,
Sure.
because you're just in your room and you don't have to worry about COVID or anything like that. But it's also it's a great place to return to after you've been performing for so long, because then you get to stay home. I have a child. It's nice to see my kid and my wife, and you can still like be creative and be an artist, and paint these like kind of soundscape, pictures on your computer with Pro Tools or Logic, and be around. People can see your work. You
Sure.
can put it on YouTube. So like the idea of like in the 70s or the 80s where it's like you have to tour or else nobody will see you. It's not the way it is anymore. You can be on YouTube, you can be on Instagram, you can do all this stuff. You can release artwork into the world and people will dig it, and then, there's so much need for content now, especially now during the COVID crisis. Writing music could be a very lucrative thing as long as you can find the work. It's out there because there's like, I don't have cable in my house. I haven't had it forever.
Okay.
So
I don't think you're
brag. Thank
Yeah.
you, everybody. The reason why I'm saying this is because I didn't realize that there was 90,000 channels now.
Right.
Like when I stopped having cable, there was
3 channels of
31
PBS, or no?
maybe. Exactly. 3 channels of PBS. There was PBS Sports, PBS After Dark, and then PBS. There's so many channels now on the television, and then there's so many channels on the on the web and stuff like that. Like there's so much need for content and music that it's a really great time to be a composer. So, and then you and I know each other also from the work that we did with Drip,
Sure.
which is in Orlando, which is a dance rock show that my wife created on it, and she had me write the music for that. So there was another freaky, theatrical
Sure.
show that was super, super fun and very different than, everything else that is out there. So that was really fun to get into that as a composer. So composition now, to make a long story even longer, the composition stuff now has just been a really great place for me to find myself at this stage in my career because it's safe and lucrative and super fun without having to leave your house and get on a bus.
Sure. Now, how would you describe the feeling you got performing for BlueManGroup or Drip, and versus being in an original band and playing on stage? Because obviously one has a little bit more personal ego and identity. When you were in BlueManGroup, nobody not only knew who the Blue Men were, but the band, and you're up there in the dark, and there's different things going on. So is it just as gratifying to you? Because obviously you said you're in front of an attentive audience, but you are not really pursuing your own original composition dreams.
Right.
How is performing in a theatrical production, let's say, versus on stage with an original band different in your mind?
It depends on what kind of a person you are. I think that I'm kind of a 50-50 person, like I'm a little more introverted than extroverted, unless I'm around people that I know, then I might be a little over extroverted.
Sure.
Does that make sense? Like I'm not one or the other necessarily. So when I was in original bands, I really liked the idea that like I'm on stage. This is me, I'm the bass player, I helped write this song. I like to look down in the crowd and have people look at me and be like, I know what he looks like. Where at Blue Man, it's like I didn't write any of the songs. I'm wearing makeup and I'm in a box, so you can't see that it's me. It doesn't matter.
Right.
And I like that anonymity of it as well.
Okay.
Because I think that it made me feel like I could be somebody other than myself. Which I think we're all kind of looking for that sometimes. Like that's why Halloween is really fun, and that's why it's fun to
That escapist.
Yeah. You can just kind of put something on yourself, and you're just like all of a sudden you're released of all these personal chains that we put on ourselves over the years. So I think that I like both. I really like the idea of people knowing that I'm a part of something, and then people not knowing at all.
Got it.
And then I can just kind of be this person that that they've never seen before and will never see again.
So, as you said, fast forward from BlueManGroup to Drip, where you composed and were the music director. And so from scratch, other than coming in on BlueManGroup and kind of taking over what they had already implemented, you were the guy and started from the ground floor. How was that process? And also, in performing every night, any of these shows, if you don't know, I mean, you're playing to click track. I mean, everything is timed out to the millisecond.
Mostly, yeah.
You know, there isn't an ability to take a longer solo and go around more, because if the rest of the cast or the dancers or whoever is participating, if they're playing on cues, then everything has to be pretty streamlined, and so there isn't a lot of room for improvisation.
Right.
It is a choreographed show, and a lot of it is choreographed to the music. So how is that process? From doing it from scratch, from the ground up, conceiving the show with Mariko, being able to bring that to fruition, and also kind of just the daily, man, that you're playing that same thing, and it's the same time, and it's the same thing, and you got to be on that beat, and you got to keep going.
Right. Well, I think there's a bunch of stuff in there that I could talk about. For anybody who doesn't know anything about Drip was a dance rock show that was playing in Orlando, where it was very immersive, and the crowd was all around the dancers, and there was flying paint and water and stuff like that, so it was very messy. But the band was either, depending on the timing, it was 4 or 3 people. And it was the music was very, I'm a big fan of like Tool and Perfect Circle, Autolux, Failure, those kind of like 90s noisy rock bands, My Bloody Valentine. So I wanted to make, because the show was very dark and messy and in a warehouse, that kind of music really fit something like that. So I kind of just, I don't know, like you do with anything artistic, you just kind of start grabbing random things out of your head. Like my wife Mariko, who created it, would say like, hey, this piece is about longing for somebody. So I would just start writing something, and because that came from, and I would write it from a personal place, and because that came from a personal place, it was generally received well. You know what I mean? It wasn't fake. It was something that I tried to put my I don't know, like history into, or my, things that I've dealt with. And then she would hit that, and then hopefully those waves would hit her, and it would match up with her storyline.
Got it.
And it did, and I was on tour with Blue Man at the time, so I wrote the entire show in hotel rooms all across the United States.
Wow.
On like a little laptop and really awful guitar sounds coming from a computer. But so that was that deal. And then that's basically how, and then luckily, how I learned how to be in a theatrical production came from BlueManGroup and not from another, like Broadway or something like that, which is rad too. There's
sure.
So my experience with Blue Man really helped me mold the music to something that would work in a Drip, in something that Drip was trying to be. So I was able to write the music in a way that was like, hey, and I would direct the people. I'd be like, hey guys, like this is the music, but improvise and make it your own. But know that this is the theme, and you should probably hit this one, and you should probably hit this beat.
Sure.
And everything's on a click too as well. So.
And here's when the change is happening, because this is going to cue the lights, and it's a very complex thing.
Exactly. So much like Blue Man, there's a lot of improv, but there's also things you have to hit, because we're dealing with actors, and we're dealing with lighting and video and stuff like that. So there was things that you had to hit, but also, there were areas that you can make the show yourself, and we would be directed, or make the show like your own, and we were directed to do so, because that's what creates something new and exciting every night.
Sure.
So so that's what we did with Drip, and hopefully I got that across to the musicians, and all the musicians were awesome that we had, and they all did a really good job at doing that. So basically then at the end of the day, how do you deal with doing that every single night is you have to make the show different for yourself every single night. And you have to find the beauty in playing repetitive or music that you play all the time. You have to find the beauty in that number one, you're lucky to do it. And number two, if you think that you're playing it perfectly, you're wrong. You always have something you can work on. If you know, like I played an instrument that was a slide instrument. That was one of the things. And so if I ever got really bummed out, I was like, oh, I got to play this song again. It's like, well, dude, you're playing a slide instrument. Can you make your intonation better than it's ever been? Huh. Work on that. Work on your. Is the person in the back row, of this massive theater, are they excited when they see you, or are you just sitting there like this? Try to make them more excited. So work on your physicality. Work on this. There's always stuff that you can work on.
how is being able to birth something, or even in BlueManGroup, when you would go initiate, when they would move to different cities, you'd be kind of on the ground floor of helping them and bridge that show and helping them get that off the ground. So that and Drip, I mean, is there a sense of pride of going in, because you only were the musician, a handful of times in that, but you also, there's many musicians that were playing your composition, or many people that you trained to be able to do that. Is it a sense of pride of getting to watch that and go, wow, I really helped them get there? Or, wow, they're up there playing my music, different than, wow, they're playing my cover song or they're singing my song, but they're actually up there performing, in a plethora of different people, and it could be different people on different nights and a different combination of people. How is that as a sense of pride of being able to see that show happen, and you can just step back and kind of micromanage from afar, maybe?
Well, it's amazing. It was an amazing experience. Like, I kind of poo-pooed the idea of like when you play in a band and 7 people come, it's just like that's not a super bummer.
Sure.
Having those 7 people there always made me feel really great.
Sure.
And if they bought a CD, that would make me even feel better. And then if they said like, hey, like we listened to your music, that would make me feel like $1 million, you know? So with Drip, we were very successful. I mean, you were there and Dakota was there. Like, we were very successful, and we had a lot of people come to the show.
Sure.
And when I wasn't doing Blue Man, I was either playing that show for the first year, or I was able to come and hang out and watch it, and to see, like 60 people in a circle just having a really amazing time, watching a show that I was a part of.
Sure.
And the music's a huge thing, but I was a small part, of what went into making that show.
Yeah.
Mariko obviously did a massive amount. You did a massive amount. The dancers are like superheroes, and they were the real. I mean, the dancers were incredible. So to like see all of our hard work join together and just make these people just be like, I've never seen anything like this before, and I loved it.
Yeah.
And then they're like, I'm bringing my mom back here, or I'm bringing my grandma, or I'm bringing my, my boyfriend, my girlfriend. Like, it was like nothing that I had experienced before, mainly because I had helped give birth to it.
Yeah.
Now with Blue Man, I luckily became a director in that company, where I would then travel to certain places and help open their shows.
Right.
Which, like I said before, like there's the anonymity part, and then there's the kind of it's not ego, but there's the I wanted people to know that I was part of this. It was super cool to go to like this massive, huge like casino theater and just be like, all right, I'm part of a group of people that nobody will ever know that I did this, but I'm going to create this show with these people.
Yeah.
And that was also super hip too, because it was kind of like what we did at Drip, but on a much larger scale. And it taught me how to be somebody that had to answer to people, and not just like answer the one person like I had to deal with Blue Man. Like, if somebody came, the director or another director came, and they would give me notes, and I'd be like, great, and I would go do the show. This was like a whole bunch of people together trying to create this like multi-million-dollar production.
Yep.
And it taught me how to like, there's a director here who directs this person. These 2 directors direct these people.
Sure.
These people, and I was somewhere in there, and it was really cool. I really enjoyed the order of it, because art to me had never had that kind of a structure. It was always just like, you just like create it, and if people didn't like it, it's like whatever, screw you. And if people, that was just the way it was. You were never going to make any money on it, because you don't make money in that stuff often. So when I became when I was able to join this group of directors and create this stuff, I was like, oh my God, everybody has a place, and everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing. And everybody's coming together at the end in a circle, and there's like one director who's like, okay, like video, what do you got? And video would be like, this is what I got. And they'd be like, great. You done? Done. Move on to the next person. Electrics, what do you got? And then music, what do you got? And I'd be like, well, I don't know. And they'd go and be like, okay. And then you move on to the next. You know what I mean? That was so cool to have this like, this structure of creating something artistic that was under this massive umbrella of money and the theater itself and the people who are paying us to do it. It was just, I don't know. It's just having that kind of duality of like creating something low budge where I was one of the people, and how amazing that felt. It felt like $1 trillion, you know, that was just the best. And then on the other side, just being a small part of this big production also makes you feel like you're a part of something great, you know? So really, it just, for me, it always had to do with, if I'm a part of creating something that people are going to be able to enjoy, then like, I love all the different ways that you can do that.
So fast forward, middle of 2020 now. We all go on quarantine. We come back. We find out recently that BlueManGroup, for at least the current state, is not coming back.
Right.
What have you been doing from quarantine till now? Because we know that it was about to come back and it did not. So from quarantine till today, what have you been doing to occupy your time? I know you mentioned composing. You also have a beautiful family, a young child. So how has not being on stage been for you when you have been doing it for the last 20 years, almost nightly? So how is the new stay-at-home David Traver adapting, and how do you think the future is going to be for you? Where do you want to go now?
Well, it's been interesting. I kind of assumed that that the show would come back like soon. Like
Sure.
I think all of us were just kind of, we didn't know where this was going to go, and we still don't. You know, so I was kind of like, yeah, okay, this is a great forced vacation, you know, like even though it wasn't a vacation because, you know, we weren't getting paid, you know, and it was just the way it was. I was like, okay, cool, like this is the way it was, I was like, you know, things are going to happen, and I think that for like for the first, I don't know, maybe month or two, maybe, I admit that I was like, we'll be okay. You know, and I was just kind of like putzing around the house and maybe working on some things. I'm taking a class in writing music and licensing music, so that was like, I'll work on this for a while, and then the show will come back and everything will be cool. Then we got the news that Cirque, because Cirque owns BlueManGroup, Cirque du Soleil is laying off everybody, and that's just the way it is, and not furlough anymore. It's going to be laid off, and that was a bit of a shock to the system, and I've been a little bit surprised at how well I've been taking it, because
this is still a very new thing. I mean, as we sit
it's
here,
a fresh wound.
Yeah, it's a fresh wound.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I've been taking it actually pretty well, because I think if you do something for that long, you I don't know, like I think I was starting to be like, this could end at any time. You know, even before the COVID thing, I was like, now that I have a kid and I have I have a wife and a mortgage and all this stuff, I was like, you know, this stuff could end at any time. So I think maybe you should start thinking, you know, and also you get older and you're like, you know, I have people to take care of and all this stuff. Where when I was 27 and, you know, I was just like, this thing's going to go forever. I'm going to be 90 and I'm going to be wearing paint. It's going to be great. You know, I didn't really do much for the first couple months. And now that they let us all go, I've actually been really like productive, which has been really cool. Because now I literally have nothing. Like for the first time in my like adult life, I have nothing I have to be anywhere. You know, every night I had to like 6 o'clock, I had to go get in, you know, to makeup and go and do the show.
Yep.
And now I don't have to. And that's really freeing to know that, like, yeah, I loved this thing. I love it. I still love it. And if they come back, I will probably go back. But I also, like, I have an opportunity now that is inarguable. It's not like oh, I could do this while I do the Blue Man show, or like, oh, Blue Man will last forever. It's like, no, like, this is gone. You have to do something. So there's no arguing this. Do it, you know?
Yeah, talking about what could have, should have, would have.
Yeah. Because you can do that if you got like this, you know, if you've got this thing that, you know, you enjoy and pays your bills, you get really relaxed in it, you know, which is fine. Like, I don't think people should put pressure on themselves necessarily, but when, you know, you can be inspired by that thing, and then you're just like, yeah, that's inspiring. I'm just going to do that. But then you have to really, like, when it goes away, you have to just kind of be like, I need to find something that'll pay the bills, but also will fill in that missing thing that you've been doing for forever. So,
Which is creative
which is being an
music,
artist.
and it's all these things, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So
So getting a job at Home Depot, or I mean, a job to pay the bills is not the same as the job that fulfills your soul.
Which I might have to go to Home Depot, which is fine, because that's great. To be able to make money and feed my family, I should be so lucky. But I'm trying to do something before I have to do that in my passion, because this is an opportunity that I have.
Sure.
To do that. So anyway, I've been taking a class, because I think taking classes right now and stuff is really great and learning. So I've been taking a class in music licensing. I've been writing a lot of music. I've been meeting a lot of people from around the world. I've been writing with people from all different parts of the country who are also in this class. So I've met a lot of great people. And I was approached to write some music for a app. So I'm going to explore app writing, music for apps.
Okay.
There's possibly some things coming around the corner in the fall that are immersive theatrical things that I'm working on that I can't talk about. But I have things are actually kind of popping up.
That's awesome.
And I think part of the reason is because, I hope this is part of the reason, is because the world right now, it's a very fertile time, because there's so many unbelievably talented people who don't have any work. So I think everybody's putting out this vibe, like there's all these artists who are just like, I'm open and available,
right?
And I think that's a thing. I think that if you have that kind of mindset, amazing things are going to happen. And then what happens, you put out that vibe, somebody just, I don't know, picks it up, but who knows? And they go, we need a composer. And they're like, boom. I know this guy who does it. A friend of mine was like, I know a guy who does it. And then they called me. Oh my God, I was so excited. But then what happens when, we get that thing going? And you're like, well, now we need dancers. Or now we need a sound guy. Or now we need this and that. Now we need a tech. Now we need this. It just starts to grow.
Yeah.
So I really think that some amazing stuff is going to grow out of this time where everybody's putting out this fertile vibe, out into the universe that I'm available and I'm brilliant and you need me. And people are gonna be like, man, the little antenna is gonna go up and they're gonna be like, yeah, we need somebody who's brilliant, and then somebody's gonna tell somebody else and then you get the job and that's gonna be great. And then we're all gonna create amazing things. It's gonna be like a baby, 9 months from now, there's gonna be hopefully some amazing stuff coming out.
And I think the audience is also is evolving as well, because they're kind of being cut off. If they're not creatives, but they're also, they're used to going to shows, they're used to going to these things, used to going to theatrical productions, whatever it is. They're used to going out and enjoying their lives. And so I think that they're evolving with us, and they're going to be just as ready for something new as well.
Oh,
you can only
totally.
Thank God that Netflix and other places, they're constantly giving us more stuff to do and watch, and you can never see and do it all. But I think that enough time underground, being hunkered down, is going to bring a really good resurgence of people being engaged and appreciating art, where maybe they were getting a little complacent pre-COVID.
Oh, totally. They get used to the idea that it just exists.
Yep.
But art can go away very quickly. It's always going to be there, but it can easily get out of your range, out of ear range or sight range or whatever it is. It can go away, and people feel it immediately when something like that is gone. So yeah, I think that people right now, I think that when everything lifts and we're able to come out again and start doing stuff, I think all the restaurants, bars, clubs, hopefully, some of the people putting on like dance shows, putting on anything like that, I think they're going to be like filled to the brim, and we're going to have this like really awesome, prosperous time for artists. I think we're going to, because exactly what you said, the people who are looking for that kind of stuff for entertainment, they need it really
the post-COVID
badly.
renaissance.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And they need to break it. They need to get out of the house. And what are you going to do? You're just going to get out of the house and walking around the streets. That's super cool, but you want something more. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So people are going to go out and they're going to need it. So this is actually a really exciting time. So again, making a long story longer, I've been oddly positive about this whole thing and trying to maintain that positivity. Now, when my bank account goes down to like $7 in the bank, in however long it is, and I haven't made any money, then I think at that point I might kind of change my tune a little bit.
Sure.
But while I have the opportunity to try new things right now and go for it, I'm super psyched.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, David, thank you so much for being
Yeah,
here.
no problem.
We will definitely stay tuned with you. Call us when the $7 are left, and we'll try to give some inspiration
That'd be
your
awesome.
way.
Thank you.
This has been another episode of Working Musicians. For David Traver, I'm John Thiessen. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Stay tuned to our YouTube channel for future Working Musician videos and more content from El Camino School. We'll see you down the road.